For years, I believed I was the kind of man who had done everything right. I married young, stayed loyal, worked hard, and kept my promises. My wife, Talia, and I had been together since college. We grew up side by side, awkward first jobs, tiny apartments, burnt dinners, and eventually two kids who turned our world upside down in the best way possible. Ethan came first, wide eyed and always asking questions. Then Maya, sweet but fierce, with a giggle that could snap me out of any bad day. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. I handled the finances and worked a steady job in property management. Nothing flashy, but it paid the bills and gave us health insurance and security. Talia stayed home with the kids, ran a small online craft business, and always made the house feel warm. She had this way of decorating that made everything look thoughtful, like it was done with love, not just style. Our house smelled like cinnamon and laundry detergent. On weekends, it was pancakes and cartoons, board games, and backyard soccer. Our kids laughed a lot. So did we. Friday nights were pizza and movie night. Talia always let the kids choose, even if it meant watching the same animated movie for the 100th time. Ethan would cuddle next to me on the couch, Maya sprawled out with her feet on her mom's lap. I'd sit there with a slice in one hand and a child leaning on the other side of me thinking, this is it. This is everything. Bedtime was my favorite. Reading stories, silly voices, extra hugs, the kind of routine that becomes muscle memory. Maya always asked for 2 bedtime stories. Ethan made me promise to check under the bed, even though he wasn't scared anymore. And every night before I left their room, I'd whisper, you're safe. I love you. Talia and I weren't without our problems. We had our arguments about money, schedules, things forgotten or said the wrong way, but we always circled back. We had years behind us, and we had built a life together. I thought that meant something unshakable. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still left notes in my lunch sometimes, little inside jokes or smiley faces drawn in pen. I didn't feel tension. I didn't notice distance. If anything, I thought we were finally hitting a good rhythm again after the chaos of raising toddlers. We had date nights again. I had just started planning a family vacation for the summer. If you had asked me then, I would have told you that I felt lucky, blessed even. I didn't drink, I didn't party, I didn't lie or cheat. I did what husbands and fathers are supposed to do. I believed that if you did right by your family, life would take care of you in return. I had no idea it was all about to collapse. It was a Thursday afternoon, the kind that blurs into the rest of the week. Work had dragged on, and I was drained, sweat clinging to my shirt, dirt under my nails from a long site inspection. All I could think about was a shower and the kids' usual post-school chaos. I was craving that familiar noise, their bickering, their laughter, the way Maya always ran into the kitchen to ask what was for dinner. I walked through the front door without knocking, the way I always did. It was my home, or at least I thought it was. Talia was standing in the living room, arms crossed tight like she was holding something in. Her face was blank, not angry, not sad, just cold. Her phone was in her hand, screen lit up, fingers tight around it. Something about the way she was standing made me slow down. No hello, no, you're home late. Just silence. I gave her a half smile and wiped my forehead. Long day, I said. Can this wait until I rinse off? I smell like I rolled in the dirt. Her voice was even, too even. Who is she? I blinked. Who's who? Her thumb tapped the phone. Don't play dumb, Aaron. Lila, who is she? I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because it made no sense. Lila? I don't know any Lila. Talia didn't move. She held out the phone, screen facing me. There were text messages, dozens of them, a conversation thread between someone named Aaron and a contact saved as Lila. Messages that were graphic, intimate, full of pet names, inside jokes, late-night cravings, and worse, filthy descriptions, promises, plans. That's not me, I said immediately, my stomach lurching. Talia, I swear I don't know what this is. Her eyes didn't waver. So you're saying this is fake? Yes. Look at the way this person writes. I don't talk like that. I don't even abbreviate my texts like this. I don't call anyone babe, yo, you know that. I know what I read, she snapped, voice rising for the first time, and I've seen enough. You think I'm stupid? No, I think you're wrong. I think someone is messing with you, or with me. This isn't mine. Then I noticed it, her other hand hidden behind her back, another phone, the red light blinking. She was recording me. I stepped back, voice low. Are you recording me? She didn't answer, just narrowed her eyes, and said, So, for the record, you're denying cheating with Lila Myers? I don't even know that name. Talia nodded to herself like she'd expected the answer and already decided it was a lie. She stopped recording, shoved her phone into her pocket, and walked past me like I wasn't standing there. I stood frozen, half inside the home I helped build, half out of a reality I didn't recognize anymore. You should leave, she said over her shoulder. Now. Wait, what? Talia, come on. Let's talk about this. Call the kids down. I just want to sit, have dinner. She was already at the door. I already called my cousin. She'll be here in 10 minutes to make sure you go. You're kicking me out? My voice cracked because I wasn't angry yet. I was still confused. She looked back at me like I was a stranger. You brought this on yourself. I tried to talk. I don't even remember what I said. My thoughts were running like water down a drain I couldn't stop. I kept waiting for her to flinch, to blink, to show a sign that she knew me, that she remembered who I was. But she didn't. She walked upstairs. 10 minutes later, her cousin showed up. Dina, cold, judgmental, carrying an overnight bag for Talia, like I was the one who had to leave and she was moving in to replace me. She didn't say much, just pointed to the door. I didn't pack a bag. I grabbed my keys, my wallet, and walked out in the same clothes I wore to work. My truck was hot from the sun. I sat there with the engine off, door still open, staring at the house that used to be mine. Everything looked the same, the porch light, the cracked tile by the steps. But nothing felt familiar. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just been accused, I'd been erased. I spent the first night in my truck, parked 2 blocks from the house I wasn't allowed to enter. I didn't sleep, I couldn't. My head was spinning, trying to make sense of how everything unraveled in a matter of hours. The woman I had loved for over a decade, the mother of my children, had looked me in the eye and treated me like a criminal. I kept thinking maybe I'd wake up and this would all be a dream, some twisted nightmare. But morning came and nothing changed. My name was still smeared, my life still felt hijacked. I called Talia the next day, straight to voicemail. I sent her messages, short, calm, desperate, no replies. When I tried again that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a legal notice. She'd filed a restraining order. I was not allowed within 100 feet of the house or to make direct contact with her. My hands shook as I read it. Unstable behavior, unpredictable responses, potential risk. I read those words over and over until they stopped making sense. The same hands that had tied shoelaces and packed lunchboxes were now being painted as dangerous. The second night, I parked behind a grocery store. I reclined the seat as far back as it would go and used an old hoodie as a pillow. The air smelled like trash and fried chicken. A security guard knocked on my window just before midnight and asked me to move along. I did, not because I had anywhere to go, but because I didn't want to be seen. Tar let me stay in his garage after I called him the next day. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Yeah, man, I got space." His wife didn't want me inside the house, not after what she'd heard. I understood. The rumors were moving faster than I could. My phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some were nosy, some pretending to be concerned. My sister called with a heavy voice and told me what was being said in the family group chat. Screenshots, stories, half-truths dressed up like facts. Talia had already delivered her version, and people were eating it up. "You need to tell your side," my sister said. But what was my side? That I didn't do it? That I was being set up? That a marriage I thought was built on trust had turned into a trap overnight? It sounded insane. I sounded guilty even to myself. I stared at the messages again, the lies crafted with precision. Whoever faked them knew how to make it look real. They didn't just try to ruin me, they succeeded. Then came the call from my job. HR wanted a meeting. Not in person, over the phone. They didn't want me back on site. "It's best for all parties involved," they said, "until things settle down." I wasn't fired, just suspended indefinitely. Code words, polite rejection. They didn't even pretend to support me. I stared at my reflection in the garage window that night. Unshaven, eyes red, clothes wrinkled. I looked like what they said I was, like someone who had lost everything and maybe deserved to. But I knew better. I knew I hadn't cheated. I knew I hadn't abandoned my kids. I knew the man I had been. A provider, a present father, a loyal husband. And yet, somehow, all of that had been overwritten by someone else's story. The silence was the worst part, not just from Talia, but from Ethan and Maya. I used to hear they didn't, and as the door clicked shut behind them, I realized the truth I had been avoiding. I didn't even recognize my own children anymore. The last check from work hit my account on a Thursday. It was less than expected, a severance that felt more like a quiet goodbye than any form of justice. I stared at the balance for a long time, watching numbers that used to mean stability now represent a deadline. I made a list: rent for the garage space, gas money, cheap groceries, maybe a prepaid phone card if anything was left over. It didn't take long to realize something had to give. I stopped eating more than once a day. Gas station sandwiches, instant noodles, the kind of food that didn't spoil and didn't cost much. I rationed peanut butter and crackers like I was planning for a storm, and in a way I was. A storm I had already been thrown into without a life jacket. I learned which corner stores gave away unsold pastries at closing. I pretended I liked cold showers, though the truth was there was no hot water in the garage. I slept under 3 blankets and still woke up shaking. The cold wasn't just physical, it crept into everything. I started avoiding mirrors. I didn't want to see the man looking back at me. Tired eyes, overgrown stubble, shoulders that used to stand tall, now bent under the weight of silence. People I used to call friends stopped picking up. Messages were left unread. The same people who once came to our cookouts now pretended I didn't exist. Some blocked me, others watched from a distance like I was contagious. My name wasn't mine anymore. It was a whisper in group chats, a warning, a rumor. Every day felt the same. Wake up, job hunt, hear nothing. Do yard work for someone who forgot my name halfway through paying me. Look at photos of Ethan and Maya. Try not to cry, fail, sleep, repeat. I started counting hours by cups of instant coffee, started counting days by how long my clothes had gone without a wash. One afternoon, I walked past a window and saw my reflection in the glass. Just for a second, I didn't recognize myself. I stopped, stood still, and stared. Not because I liked what I saw, but because something broke open. I didn't know who that man was anymore. Not the husband, not the father, not even the version of me who used to laugh on Fridays and hum while folding laundry. Just a shell. A shadow. That same night, I looked up local therapy clinics, not the ones from court lists, ones that didn't care about cases or custody. I found a sliding scale clinic 3 miles away. I walked there the next morning. I didn't trust myself to drive. The waiting room smelled like dust and peppermint. The woman at the front desk handed me a form and didn't ask questions when I left half the emergency contact section blank. The first session, I said nothing. I sat across from a woman named Claire, a therapist with soft eyes and a steady voice. She didn't push. She let the silence hang. I clenched my fists and watched a dying plant on the windowsill instead of meeting her gaze. My throat felt closed. My body felt like lead. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat. Near the end of the session, I opened my mouth. The words came out cracked, thin, unfamiliar. I don't know who I am anymore. She nodded slowly, not surprised, not judgmental, just steady. Then let's figure out who you are now, she said. I nodded. I didn't say anything else, but something in me loosened, even just slightly, like a door had creaked open after months of being jammed shut. I walked out with a paper in my pocket, an appointment card for next week, and the smallest spark in my chest. Not a fire, not yet, but something like a beginning. I started waking up before the sun, not because I had to, but because I couldn't sleep anymore. The silence between 3 and 5 in the morning was the only time my thoughts didn't shout, they whispered. I'd get up, stretch out the stiffness from another night on the cot, and step into the driveway with a hoodie and sneakers that had seen better days. The jump rope was frayed in the middle, but it worked. I counted every skip like it was a prayer, like the rhythm could keep me from falling apart. After a while, I added push-ups, then sit-ups, then squats until my legs shook. I wasn't training for anything. I just needed to feel like I had control over something, even if it was just my own body. Sweat became my proof that I was still here, still trying. I couldn't fix what had been taken from me, but I could get stronger, even if no one saw it but me. At night, I started journaling. Not the kind where you write goals and affirmations. I wrote everything I couldn't say out loud. Letters I'd never send, questions I'd never get answers to, memories that hurt to remember, but felt worse to forget. I wrote about the first time Ethan walked without holding my hand, about the way Maya used to draw purple unicorns with crooked horns. I wrote about Talia's laugh and how I still heard it. Sometimes, even when she wasn't there, I filled 2 notebooks in less than a month. My handwriting got messier, my sentences sharper. Some nights I tore pages out and burned them in a metal bucket behind the garage. I watched the words curl and blacken and turn to nothing. It helped, even if only a little. During the day, I picked up whatever work I could find, no questions asked, moving furniture, hauling junk, cleaning out gutters, digging flower beds for people who didn't want to pay much but liked to pretend they were generous. I didn't complain. Every dollar mattered. Every sore muscle was another reason to keep going. One afternoon, after 3 hours of pulling weeds from an elderly woman's backyard, she came out with a glass of lemonade and handed me a folded 20. "You remind me of my son," she said. "He messed up real bad once too." I nodded, unsure how to respond, but I kept that 20 separate from the rest. It wasn't about the money. It was the first time in weeks someone had looked at me without suspicion. That night, I stopped by a park on the edge of town. It was almost empty, just one flickering street light and a few picnic tables. I brought a pair of old gloves and a second-hand punching bag I'd hung from a rusted basketball hoop. No music, no timer, just my fists and the night. I didn't know what I was fighting, but I hit that bag until my arms gave out. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just kept swinging, breath ragged, chest burning, until the pain felt clean. Afterward, I sat on the pavement with my back to the pole, looking up at the stars. I pulled a photo from my pocket, the one of Ethan and Maya from the zoo, their cheeks sticky from cotton candy, Ethan's hand holding mine, Maya's eyes squinting from the sun. It had creases now, smudges on the corners, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I whispered the same words I said every night. "I love you, I'm coming back, just hold on." I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I knew this wasn't where it ended. Talia might have rewritten the story for now. She might have convinced people that I was the villain, the liar, the problem, but she hadn't broken me. Not completely. Every skipped rope, every journal page, every job I showed up for, it was a step. A quiet one, a slow one, but a step forward. I wasn't gone, I was just getting started. It started with a phone call from someone I barely remembered. Malcolm, an old co-worker from a job I'd worked years ago. He left a voicemail saying he'd heard what happened, didn't believe a word of it, and had something I might want to see. When I called back, he told me he still followed Talia on her old blog, said she'd posted pictures that didn't match the timeline she gave in court, said he didn't want to get involved, but couldn't stay quiet either. I met him in a parking lot the next day. He handed me a flash drive and said, "Look, I don't want any trouble, but I know what a setup looks like, and man, this smells like one." I plugged the drive into a borrowed laptop back at the garage. It was full of photos, not just of Talia, but of her and a man I'd never seen before. Beaches, hotel balconies, a weekend cabin, pictures dated months before she ever accused me of cheating. One even had Maya in the background, holding a stuffed animal I recognized from our last Christmas together. My hands started to shake. I zoomed in on one picture, her arm linked with his. His face turned slightly away, but not enough. He wasn't a stranger. It took a few minutes to place him, then it hit me. The lawyer, the one she used in court, the man who stood beside her while I was being picked apart like some disposable piece of her past. She wasn't just lying, she was sleeping with the man representing her. The pieces started clicking together. The restraining order filed so fast. The texts that didn't sound like me, the emotional performance in court, Always just the right amount of tears. It wasn't spontaneous, it was rehearsed. I needed more than photos. I needed evidence. I called every contact I hadn't yet burned. Most ignored me. One didn't, Kendra, a mutual friend from our early marriage years. We hadn't spoken in ages, but she'd always had a sharp memory and a sharper sense of justice. When I told her what I'd found, she didn't hesitate. She came to my house crying 2 years ago, said she'd fallen in love with someone else. She didn't say who, but she was scared it would ruin everything if you found out. I thought she was just venting. Kendra agreed to write a statement. She even remembered exact dates, down to the week Talia had disappeared with the kids under the excuse of visiting her mother. That same week lined up with the hotel photo from the drive. I spent the next few days digging. Emails, shared cloud drives, even old devices I hadn't powered on in years. I found fragments, deleted messages, call logs, a voice memo of Talia's I'd saved years ago by accident, buried under folders. My friend, Tar, helped me clean the data and organize everything. We didn't sleep much. It felt like building a puzzle that someone had tried to hide under layers of dirt and misdirection. The final nail came in the form of metadata. Tar's cousin worked in cybersecurity. He ran a forensic check on the Lila messages, the ones Talia used in court to paint me as a cheater. His analysis came back with a simple sentence that changed everything. These were created on a device linked to her cloud account, not mine. Heron fake messages, fabricated from her own phone, her own hands, passed off as betrayal to destroy my name. I sat on the edge of the cot, holding the printout. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe for a long time. The heat in my chest wasn't rage this time. It was something deeper, something calmer, power maybe. She had written a false story. Now I was writing the real one. The courtroom was quiet in the way hospitals are quiet, tense, too clean, filled with eyes pretending not to look. Every seat was taken, and yet the air felt empty. Talia sat on the other side, hands folded perfectly on the table, dressed in muted colors, eyes slightly red like she'd cried just enough to look human. Her lawyer, Marcus Fielding, looked exactly the same as he had months ago. Polished, smug, the kind of man who adjusted his tie every 15 minutes just to remind everyone how expensive it was. The judge entered, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Let's proceed." Talia went first, her voice soft, almost trembling. She spoke of abandonment, of betrayal, of nights spent wondering how it all fell apart. She wiped at her cheeks with a tissue and glanced at the gallery every few minutes, like she knew they were watching. She talked about emotional damage, about fear, about protecting the kids, every sentence carefully wrapped in just enough pain to sound believable. Then Marcus Fielding stood. His voice was smooth, his cadence exact. He called me unstable, said I had shut down emotionally, created a cold environment for the children, disappeared without explanation. He referenced the messages again, the same fake screenshots, the evidence that was supposed to bury me. When he was done, I didn't react. I didn't need to. My attorney stood, adjusted his jacket once, and walked forward like he wasn't just a lawyer, but a surgeon preparing to cut. No flash, no theatrics, just facts. Your Honor, we'd like to start with a review of the timeline. Screenshots appeared on the monitor, photo after photo, each one stamped with dates, geotags, even payment receipts. Talia, smiling beside Marcus Fielding, at resorts, rental cabins, weekend trips, months before the first accusation ever left her mouth. Then came the financial records, bank transfers from our joint account to a hidden one, payments labeled legal prep, consult, therapy, all going to the man now seated beside her. The judge leaned forward, lips pressed tight, then came the voice recording. Talia laughing in a kitchen. I had to do it. If I went the normal route, he'd take half the house, maybe the kids. This way, I get it all. Silence. Then another voice. Fielding's. What if it gets out? Her reply. He doesn't have the money to fight. He'll fold. The courtroom didn't move. Even the clerk stopped typing. My attorney didn't look at Talia. He looked at the judge. We'll also be submitting forensic analysis proving the text messages submitted in the original hearing were fabricated on a device registered to Miss Bell's personal cloud. He stepped back. The judge sat still for a long time, then she took off her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose, and asked for a recess. No one stood, no one clapped. The room was frozen, thick with the kind of truth that couldn't be cleaned up with a tissue or a tie adjustment. Talia stared straight ahead, face pale, mouth slightly open. Fielding looked like he'd swallowed glass. I kept my hands in my lap, fingers locked together, heart steady for the first time in months. This is what justice feels like. The paperwork came with a quiet knock. A plain envelope, 2 signatures, a court seal. Full custody granted, no appeals pending, no visitation until she completed the program. It didn't feel real until the social worker arrived with the kids. Ethan stood by the door with his backpack, gripping the straps so hard his knuckles turned white. Maya leaned against the frame, holding a stuffed elephant I hadn't seen in over a year. No words, just eyes searching the room like they weren't sure it was safe. "I made tacos," I said, trying to smile. "Still your favorite, right?" They stepped in slowly. The social worker didn't follow, just nodded and said, "We'll check in soon," before she left. The door clicked shut behind her, and it was just us. 3 people who used to be a family, now standing like strangers in a rented house with new furniture and too many memories still missing. Ethan sat at the table without saying a word. Maya hovered in the hallway before sliding into the chair across from him. I brought over the plates, extra cheese on hers, just like she liked. No one touched the food at first. I sat down. "It's okay to talk," I said gently. "You can ask anything, or nothing. We'll figure it out." Maya looked at me for a long moment. "Why didn't you fight for us before?" "I did," I said. "You just couldn't see it." Ethan didn't look up. "Mom said you stopped calling." "I wasn't allowed to," I replied. "I wanted to. Every day I wrote you letters, hundreds, but they never got sent." Silence. Then Maya reached for a taco. Ethan followed. We didn't say much after that, just the sound of chewing, forks against plates, Maya humming softly between bites. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it wasn't silence either. That night, they each got their own rooms. Ethan picked the one with the big window. Maya wanted the one with the moon lamp. She unpacked her elephant on the bed and arranged it just so. I stood in the doorway, not wanting to crowd them. Ethan turned on the TV in the living room. "Still got that space documentary channel?" I nodded. "Still your favorite?" He shrugged, but sat on the couch. Maya joined him a minute later. I took the other side, not in the middle, just nearby, close enough to reach if they wanted me, far enough not to push. Halfway through the show, Maya leaned her head against my shoulder. Just for a second, I didn't move, I just let it happen. The next morning I made pancakes. They didn't eat much, but they sat at the table while I flipped them. Maya asked if we could get syrup with strawberries next time. Ethan asked if he could hang a poster in his room. I said yes to both. We spent Saturday at the park. No big plans, just swings and cold juice boxes. Maya climbed the monkey bars. Ethan threw a football back and forth with me in stiff silence that softened with every catch. It didn't take much, just time, just presence. By the 3rd day, Maya was painting again. She left little streaks of blue and green on the table and didn't try to wipe them away. I didn't either. Ethan asked if I still had the model rockets we built years ago. I did. We dusted them off together, piece by piece, in the garage. They started asking about the past in small, cautious ways. Maya said, "Mom said you yelled a lot." I answered, "Not at you, never at you." Ethan asked, "Did you want to leave?" I said, "I never wanted to leave you. No lectures, just truth, one answer at a time." On Friday night, after movie time and soft lights, I walked them to their rooms. Maya crawled into bed without protest. Ethan paused in the hallway, looking down at his socks. "Do we live here now?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. I knelt beside him, hand resting on his back. "Yes," I said. "You're home." The house by the lake wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, and a small patch of grass that didn't take more than 15 minutes to mow. But the air was clean, the water quiet, and the windows let in more sunlight than the kids knew what to do with. Ethan painted his room dark blue and put up his space posters in perfect lines. Maya covered hers in glow-in-the-dark stars, stuck haphazardly across the ceiling. She said she liked falling asleep under her own sky. Mornings started with waffles or toast, depending on who beat who to the kitchen. Maya played music from her tablet while brushing her hair. Ethan took his coffee black now, just like I did. Some routines were new, others returned like old friends. Lunches were packed with jokes written on napkins, and backpacks were left in the middle of the floor, no matter how many times I asked, but I didn't mind. The mess meant they were here. Therapy continued, quietly but regularly. Sometimes we went together, sometimes one-on-one. Maya talked more than she used to. Ethan didn't say much during sessions, but outside he started asking real questions, not just about what happened, but about how I made it through. One day he asked if I ever hated her. I told him no. I told him I hated what she did, but not who she was, because that would have meant hating a part of themselves, too. And I wouldn't put that weight on their backs, not ever. In the evenings, we played board games. We walked along the water, sometimes in silence, sometimes telling stories we made up as we went. Maya drew comics again, this time with characters she named after animals. One was a turtle with a cape. Ethan laughed at her drawings more than he used to. Their laughter filled the house, even in the quietest corners. I stayed away from social media. No posts, no updates. I didn't need the world to know I'd survived. It was enough that the people who mattered saw me every day, saw that I hadn't disappeared, that I was still here, still showing up. The photo stayed in my wallet, the one from the zoo years ago, faded edges, frozen smiles, a reminder of a time before everything went sideways. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I opened my drawer and took it out again. I laid it on the table beside a newer picture, one Maya had taken by the lake. We were standing in the backyard, hair messy from wind, all three of us mid-laugh, the sky gold behind us. I taped the new photo over the old one, not to forget, just to move forward. In the months that followed, I took the settlement money and put it to use. A foundation, small but growing, built for parents like me, ones who had been pushed out, shut down, erased without proof. I called it Hands Clean. We offered legal guidance, counseling, and most importantly, a place to be heard. I hired people who understood, men and women who'd been through it too. No headlines, just healing. We met on Saturdays in the back room of a borrowed church building. Some cried, some shouted, some just sat with arms crossed and didn't speak, but they showed up, and sometimes that was enough. When someone new arrived, I gave them a folder and said the same thing every time. You're not crazy, you're not alone, you're not finished. At home, life became quiet in the best way. No knocking I didn't expect. No sudden messages demanding to explain myself. Just peace. Real, earned peace. The kids brought home report cards, made pancakes with too much syrup, left socks everywhere. Maya asked if we could adopt a cat. Ethan started helping me fix up the garage, said he wanted to turn it into a workspace. I let him lead the project. He smiled more when he felt capable. One night after dinner, Maya curled up beside me on the couch. She looked up and asked, "Are we safe now?" I kissed the top of her head. "We've always been safe," I said. "Now we're home." Outside, the lake was calm. Inside, the house glowed with warmth I thought I'd lost forever. She tried to end my story, but I'm the one who gets to finish it.